Today's episode is brought to you by Bay Area company Millennium Edge Apparel, an athletic apparel company that manufactures clothing for basketball, golf, soccer, regular workouts, and even restaurant staff members. To learn more, visit millenniumedgeapparel.com. And now, back to the show.
That's what I said. That's what I said. That's what I said.
Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, heroes and villains. I'm your host, Deshaun Fauntleroy. I know your time is precious, so we're going to get right into today's show. You know, what's real interesting, we've been doing Last Chance U for the last 3 to 4 weeks on the Sports Mastery podcast. And when you think about it, and when I think about it, because I've thought about this for a long time, and when I came up with my intro, it is for guys like J.B. Brown. You can be a hero and a villain at the same time. To some, he's a hero, and then you might have some haters out there that feels like he's a villain. So that's what this is really about. In my eyes, he's a hero because he's saving a lot of lives and he's giving a lot of kids opportunities. Now, we're going to get into today's show, and some of the things that we're going to be discussing are generational curses, recruiting, and strength training. I have my host, Leland Johnson, on. He's going to be joining us today, and he has some bullet points that he's going to share. Now, as episode 5 opens up, you see Coach LaJuan Watson, discussing, he's the receivers coach. You see him discussing generational curses. And what he's talking about is kids like Hakeem Boyd, Kerry Buckmaster, Emmett Gooden, and Bobby Bruce. Now, their situations aren't unique because when you look at the first 3 episodes, there are kids just like that, and there's kids like that around the country. The situation isn't unique. What is unique is when you find somebody that can understand what these kids are going through, meaning they're coming from broken homes. They're living in homes where there's 3 generations living under one roof. They're living in situations where the dad isn't there. They're living in situations where the mom or dad may have gone to prison, or they're both in prison at the same time, and they grow up with their grandmother. Now, I see what Coach LaJuan Watson is saying is he makes a statement like, Coach Brown, he comes from that. And I think that's good in a sense that he's been there because, he expressed that his dad was an alcoholic. His mom left him when he was young, started dating another dude. So you can see how that affected him a certain way. Now, I really feel like some people, you put these kids in certain environments or with certain coaches who have more of a conservative thinking, they're never going to get the opportunity that Coach Brown is offering. At the same time, I can hear Coach LaJuan Watson saying that Coach Brown comes from this, so he's really used to this chaos, and at times he might get caught up in it. I have my co-host, Leland Johnson, coming on the show today. Leland, how do you feel about opening up episode 5 of season 3, Last Chance U? You hear Coach LaJuan Watson discussing generational curses. What immediately comes to your mind when you hear that and the kids that we're discussing?
Not too long ago, I was discussing this with my son, and where I am with it is this. We all hear that same story over and over again. So I guess I asked myself this question: when is it going to take how many times is it going to take for us to watch someone else's example and either continue to let that be a hurdle for us, or just it's a problem? I mean, it seems like it happens so much, and it's not. It doesn't just happen in Black households. It happens in white households. It just seems like it tends to happen in households where it's families of color, and it's a problem. It's a situation, but I think that these days to continue to let it hamper you, I think you got so many examples before you, in front of you, that maybe it shouldn't be a problem, and that goes for Me too. I mean, it was happening back when I was young, and I think it was really prevalent when I was going through my little sports venture. You know what I'm saying? When I was a teenager into my young 20s and 30s, I would like to think that we were the culture to where it first started happening to. That description of an athlete's past was repeated over and over again. I think I might view it a little differently, just because there's been so many there's been so many other examples out there and so many other people overcoming the same situations over and over again. If you can understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about Coach Brown, because, he's expressed on a number of occasions, growing up in Compton, growing up in the all blood neighborhood. So he understands the kinds of kids that he's recruiting, because he comes from that. He expressed in a prior episode that he's seen his a friend get his head blown off, in front of him. Like you said, the situation is not unique, because I remember working with some kids over at Roosevelt High School back in 2011, and Christian Swain, he had some really good teams over there. And there was one particular kid, his junior season, he was nominated for the U.S. Army All-Star Game. This kid is like 16, 17 years old. Well, his mother is 31 at the time. So that tells you right there that she was a teenage mom. And if anybody knows anything about Portland, Oregon, there's more strip clubs than churches per capita. And she was a dancer / escort. So I might as well say that she was a prostitute to a degree. And he knew this. Well, this youngster that I'm talking about in particular comes home one day. The guy that she was with, basically her pimp, was giving his mother a hard time from a domestic violence standpoint. He intervenes. Well, what essentially happens is the mom takes the guy's side and kicks him out of the house. So for all intents and practical purposes, he played his senior season, but it fucked him up socially and psychologically, and he never went on to play at the next level. And you're talking about an all-state wide receiver, so one, and it's kind of like J.B. Brown said, you could do the best you can, but you can't save them all. And that's one of those unique scenarios. And, I had just met him at the time. It's a sad situation, but Coach Swain knew what he was getting, and he did the best that he could for the kid and made sure that he graduated. At the end of the day, it was this particular individual who decided not to go off to the JUCO. And years later, you see him rolling with a certain Crip gang.
He didn't have that support, man. And you got to have that support from the home. I can identify with him. Because let's say this, I can identify that the mother's love thing. I can identify with his experience, and I understand the mother's love thing. But probably like him, I didn't have the relationship, I didn't have that relationship with my mom, so I can really understand where that comes from, and to not have that. Now, I came through it, but it took me learning how to deal with it as an adult, you know what I'm saying, to get through it. But I understood I really understand that, how at a young adolescent, how that could affect you, not having that support. You know what I'm saying? That's a rough situation to deal with.
Yeah, but when you think about it, the mom's not around, the dad's not around, it's like they said, you can't save them all. And you can see that for all Coach was trying to do, he wasn't enough. And that's one of the reasons why I encourage, if you're a sports parent listening to this, whether you're married, whether you're single, it helps to get a kid around a mentor or people like us that if they're serious about playing sports, the more we start talking about these things at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we can eliminate certain behaviors that could have the potential to come out later in high school or the first 1 or 2 years of college that can cost you on the field or cost you a $200,000 education. Now, Leland, I coached over at Jefferson High School in 2016, and we had a situation where we brought 2 running backs up to varsity and they were competing that week. And I think one of them missed practice. So the other freshman, he got in about the 3rd or the 4th series. And the other kid, he ended up playing on defense more. Well, the other kid basically pitched a bitch, caused a scene on the sideline, took off his helmet and slammed it out of frustration. And what he did was he almost hit an assistant coach that is a Portland police officer. His mother sees it, his dad sees it, mom and dad aren't together. And this was a situation where, mom and dad is both in the life, even though they're not together, but they coddle him to a degree. And we had this team, we had a team meeting with them, this was Friday night. We had a team meeting that Sunday, and the mom actually supported his behavior, making it seem like we promised that he would get reps on varsity. So that was a different kind of a problem.
Not only did you have that as a problem, but you had the competition between the parents to win over his attention. Because 9 times out of 10 in those situations, that's the underlying thing that causes that rift. Because you don't get that between 2 parents who are concerned about the child, who understand that they got some difficulties in their relationship as far as getting along, but it has nothing to do with bringing their kid along. They're thinking about themselves. That's what you can see. That's the ground root issue in that relationship. Both of the parents are trying to compete for his attention. I'm the parent. I'm the one you can depend on. Both of them are trying to do that, and then in turn, look what it's doing to his attitude, and look what it does to his positioning when he deals with authority figures or other adults.
It's similar to like Coach Brown. It's like he knows what he's getting. He knows the baggage. So when this kid came to the high school, we knew what kind of baggage we were getting. And anywhere else, he would have been kicked off the team. You look at Bobby Bruce's situation, even though he had a run-in with authorities, he ended up going to jail for 30 days. He got out, wasn't charged, was in the wrong place at the wrong time. At another institution where they're more conservative, he's kicked off the team. But we realize that when you do things like that, you can be harming an individual. So it's sometimes you might get a second or third chance. And, with this particular kid, he got a 1-game suspension and we brought him back because to kick him off the team, that makes the situation worse. And that's where you have to appreciate guys like J.B. Brown, guys like Cornell Ward, his mentor that work in the inner city, that understands the dynamic that if you're going to approach it from a conservative aspect, you can often make the situation worse if you don't take the time to understand what these kids are going through on the socio, psychological, and economic level.
Yeah, but you know what? I can also understand Coach JB's approach, because just the last weekend, my son came from the University of Nevada, and he comes home on his breaks, and we're getting a workout in, and we're at our gym in Portland, which we use every Saturday and Sunday, and everybody knows we come in every Saturday and Sunday at between 6 and 8, and we use half the court for our training. Okay, well, this one particular kid who had seen me there before, I talked to him and approached him, asked him what sports did he play, and if he wanted to come and work out with us, it would be great. Well, I guess this particular day he was on one, and while Jazz was training, he tended to come in and, shoot the ball periodically in the middle of his drill. So, I would turn to him and I would say, man, don't do that. Can you not do that? And he proceeded to be a little jerk, to cut the story a little short. So then I used the Coach JB approach, So I looked at him and I said, look, bro, I asked you nicely before you started disrespecting me. I told you to stop shooting on the court. So he starts shooting. He then gets belligerent. Oh, you can't. I said, you know what, man? Just don't shoot on the court, man. And he goes to shoot on the court. And I stand in front of his way. I said, you know what? This is what you do. Go call your daddy so I can pop him in the mouth for every little disrespectful word that you having with me right now, right? Well, he had a little brother. And his little brother was like, no, you ain't going to hit my daddy. You ain't going to hit me. So then right there, I was like, oh, well, maybe they ain't got no daddy. You know what I'm saying? Because the first response would have been, okay, let me call him. You know, because that's who I wanted to talk to. I wanted to talk to his daddy and ask him why his son was so disrespectful. I was going straight to the jugular with the issue, right? But something unique happened, okay? And I went into it with this belief. I went into it going, okay, these are kids you can't deal with gloves on. You got to kind of like deal with them. And I actually made the statement. I said, see, you ain't never had nobody deal with you little niggas like I'm finna deal with your ass. And I said it just like that. And he looks over at me. And I said, see, I should have my little son come over here and tap that ass, and I should sit here and wait on your daddy. So the other brother jumps out and say, where your son at? Where your son at? And this going to show you how like minds sometimes click and how that type of confrontation can handle a situation. So he jumps and says, where your son at? Where your son at? So I kind of smiles and I said, man, ain't nobody trying to get my son. That's my son right there. So he looks over at my son and he go, oh, okay. I mean, and I just started laughing and I looked at it, I said, you know what? I love you, bro. I said, I love you. I said, but you know what? He's going to get you hurt. I said, because actually you're the one, you got some sense. I said, that one over there, he ain't got no sense, right? So the little brother ends up telling him, hey, man, chill out. Before it was all said and done, me and him ends up hugging, boom, and he walks away. I get a phone call that night from one of the staff, and he goes, oh, did you get into it with little man? I forgot his name. I said, yeah, man, he got kind of belligerent, and the first thing he said was this: he has no guidance, and I think he needs a mentor. Right? Now, he showed his ass with me so much, I was almost like, fuck him. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm gonna do is I'm kind of gonna let it blow over, and then probably this weekend when I see him, this weekend coming up when I see him, I'm gonna just take that moment then to pull him to the side and talk to him, because I seen his brother the next day, and I looked at his brother. I said, hey man, you know, I've been thinking about you all night, man. I've been thinking about you, bro. I said, what are you doing with yourself? And it turned out to be a situation where he just wanted to be, you know, he's not used to people being concerned about what he's doing, why he's doing it, where he's doing it at. You know what I'm saying? And he was just so responsive. We went from don't be talking about my daddy to, okay, sir, but I wasn't arguing with you though. That tells you right there what the issue is. They crying out, man. They crying out. Hey, man, will somebody care about me? So when I seen him, I said, hey, yo. I said, you ain't playing no sports? I said, what school you go to? He was going to a continuation school, okay? I just looked at him. I said, look at me, man. I said, I once told this kid that he was so special. I once told him he was so special, man. And he was cracking jokes and stuff and shit, and people was laughing. I told him, I said, man, people ain't laughing with you. They laughing at your ass. Trust me, they laughing at you. And I told him, I said, that kid, man, he plays for the 49ers right now. And I'm just here to tell you, boy, you got the same qualities that boy got. I don't know how you're going to utilize those qualities and have them take over your life so that it really puts you in the place where you need to be. But, dude, listen to me. You're special. You understand me? And dude looks at me and he smiled. Yeah. Man, any other person probably would have seen that kid on the street. They would have viewed him totally different if he didn't open his mouth. The way he looked, appeared, hair not combed, all that kind of shit, they would have looked at him like the average little black hoodlum on the street. But it was so cool through that interaction how I think I got to his heart. And every time I see him, man, if the only thing I can be is that person to go, hey, I'm watching you. Hey man, come here, give me a hug. You know what I'm saying? If I can only be that to him, I'm gonna be that to him.
And I like the story that you're sharing with me, Leland, because you took the time to build some trust. You had to break through some barriers. And what often happens is when you have kids that's coming up in broken homes, or they're living in a situation with 3 generations in the household, or maybe the mom or dad goes to jail, there's really no trust with authority figures because they've been let down. And you can see that I'm transitioning into recruiting now. It's a coach's job to recruit, but often kids are coming into a situation where they don't really trust you. They're kind of like, this is a fight or flight thing. I'm going to this school, but I'm here to protect myself. That's all they know. And sometimes people would say they stay in the shell. And I heard J.B. Brown say that about Rakeem Boyd. And we know he comes from a situation in New Orleans with his mom. Dad's not really in the picture, and they wind up in Houston. You can see the same thing going on with Bobby Bruce. So put yourself in an athlete situation. I'm recruiting you. I know I might, and I'm getting into recruiting now. And there's a term in recruiting called negative recruiting, where you might inflate or deflate stats depending on what you're talking about. And when you look at a guy like Rakeem Boyd, Jamal Scott, and Kingston Davis, I think he signed a kid from Michigan first. Maybe Jamal's on the staff. So if I'm trying to get Rakeem, I might just say I'm only 2 deep with backs. We need 1 more back. And those are the guys on the depth chart. And they might be a 70-30, 70 pass, 30% run team. And coaches are known to do this. Recruiters have been known to do this, where they'll say we're 50-50 run and pass, or 60-40 run pass. So you get there, and then you don't see the other 4 or 5 backs that you're competing with that might be on the scout team that can compete with you. And then you can see how a player might think, man, I've been told that I'm a starter. I've been told that I'm going to be able to do this. And now the situation looks different. You could have a bad game or two and the situation goes dire and you retreat into a shell. There was a scene, I think, in a prior episode where Rakeem was like, I think he was struggling at the beginning. He was like, I don't know if I can trust another coach again. There was something going on there. I'm not saying that it implies to the recruiting of the ICC coaches, but I'm talking about from a sports parent perspective. You got to look at all of the numbers. You got to go out and do your own due diligence when it comes to going to a school. Recruiters are supposed to sell you. They're supposed to get the most amount of talent, and you're supposed to understand at the same time there is going to be some competition there. I can't tell you how much. What were you going to say, Leland?
Each situation had one thing consistent, and they had a parent that either did not understand the recruiting process, did not understand it at all, and each parent didn't do their research. All the parents treated the parents that we're talking about, they treated their kid's situation like, unfortunately for them, that it was exposed to the coaches that you need me more than I need you. And the players would tell you that Coach Brown would be, that was one of his sayings, that was one of his monikers. And another one was, take your motherfucking ass home then. You know what I'm saying? But the other one was, you need me more than I need you. And I'm not saying nothing wrong about that about Coach Brown, because it was the truth. But when you put yourself in that position and they see that, then now you dealing from a different, you're willing and dealing from a different position. I've experienced being around recruiters and dealing with recruiters, and I had the chance to do, I did my research, and there's ways that you can go about it. And I chose to go about it the way of, the person that I talk to, if they're interested in any kid that I'm dealing with, they're gonna get a straight up, questioning from me. Is gonna be more like an interrogation. You know what I'm saying? I could get my son's situation at Nevada, and it was a really crazy situation because we went into it.
Now hold on, Leland. This is at Nevada Reno, right? Where he's at with the Wolfpack?
Yeah, this is at Nevada Reno.
Yeah.
And this is probably the reason why I chose or me and him, we chose that. I'm not saying me and him chose that program. Even though he leaned on the decision that would be made, he leaned on my opinion a great deal. But we go to we get invited down. We go to the, nice little hotel, top floor. We're in Reno, and we doing our thing. And we go see the campus, the whole thing, man. He goes to the runs, and it comes down to the point where they're showing you the video of him, all the stuff that he did last year, showing you his stats, and everything was good. And one of the assistants stood up. He said, "Mr. Johnson, we just want you to understand, and we want you to know this. We're going to treat your son like he's one of ours." And for some reason, because that was thrown at me several times during my nephew Coyote's recruiting process, it just got to be with me. I'm like, I listened to what they were saying, and I said, okay, every coach that basically says to me, we're going to be like his parents, they're trying to tell me they know what type of parent I am. And I don't think they know what type of parent I am. And guess what? I'm going to let them know what type of parent I am. So when he said that, I was like, yo, I stopped him. I said, let me stop this right here, man. I said, first of all, I never asked for y'all to be his parent. He got a mama and daddy that's together that's here raising him. And I put it out there just like this. All I need from you is an opportunity for my son to play ball and for him to get his degree. That's all I'm asking y'all for. I don't need the flim flam flarth. I said it just like that, bro. And it got quiet where you could just hear a needle just bling, and it probably sounded like a brick hitting the ground, right? But this was the turning point. And even though we had some negative stuff after that, this was the turning point. The turning point was Coach Musk going, no, wait. Let's talk about that. When he did that, let's address that. I said, okay, maybe this is a dude I could deal with. Maybe this dude I could kind of, we could probably work with. Now check this out. So afterwards, everything was gone. Everything was over. They expected for Jazz to say, okay, cool, bam, this is where I'm going. But Jazz was like, I want to take a look at a couple of other places because, they're really interested. I said, are you sure you want to do this? I said, because if it was me, and I said it in front of the coach in front of one of the coaches, Dupree, who's now an assistant in the NBA. I was like, Dupe, if it was me, bruh, I'm sold, B. You know what I'm saying? That's how me and Dupe got along. You know what I'm saying? That's how we presented ourselves to each other. Let's say that. I said, I would do it, man, if it was me. So it showed that I was giving Jazz some authority in this also. Well, he wanted to wait. So when we got home and he waited for a phone call one day. He waited the next day, and he was like, wait a minute, what's going on, right? So when he makes the phone call, he said, Coach, I was just wondering what's going on. Coach Duke was actually the one that said, hey, because I think Coach Duke felt bad because Coach Duke was feeling me because we had some personal conversations. So Coach Duke telling me, said, hey, Jazz, we moved on, and we're going to come back to you just, only thing I can say is, man, he's looking at some other opportunities, some other situations, right? So had I not did my research at that point, they had us, okay? I done my research. So I look at Jazz. I said, so that's how you want to play it? He said, yeah. I said, okay. So I gets back on the phone with St. Mary's and a couple of colleges that were really interested in Jazz. St. Mary's was ready to go to battle with UOP to battle this rule that there's no interconference transfers, right? So we setting that up and getting ready to battle and getting ready to go at it. And all of a sudden I get a phone call. And it's from the assistant, Johnny Jones, who was a coach at LSU when your boy Ben Simmons, who was a rookie of the year for the 76ers. He was the head coach at LSU, and Muss had worked under him over at LSU. So Johnny Jones gets on the phone, and this shows you how when you stick with your guns, there's gonna be someone that hears you and who understands why you're doing what you're doing, and they're going to be admirable in the way you approach it, if you approach it with some tact. So he gets on the phone with me, and he calls me, and I don't answer. And Jazz was like, "Why are you not answering?" I said, "Jazz, first of all, they already had seen those players. He had told me that. In a conversation, he told me what players, because I asked him, what other players are you recruiting at Jazz's position? Parents, that's a very important question to ask. You look the coach in his eye, and you say, how many other players are you looking at Jazz's particular position? Well, this particular coach say, I'm looking at this guy and I'm looking at this guy. And we also have these two guys on the roster. When I viewed that, I was like, okay, I see something Jazz has that those kids don't have. Okay. And I said, okay, so all right, Jazz, don't call him. Don't waste your time with it. Don't you? Because Jazz started getting stressed, like, oh shit, maybe I blew it. I said, bro, look at me. I said, we got this. We use our the people that we talk to. Hey man, let's crank this back up. Let's get things started going. And as things start coming in again, Jazz gets a phone call. Hey Jazz, how's it going? Hey coach, what's happening? Hey man, so you ready to sign? Jazz go, Dad, it's Nevada. They want me to sign. I said, tell him you call him back. He looks at me. He said, hey coach, can I call you back? Long pause. Yeah, where's your dad? I looks at him, I go, tell him I'm not here. Tell him I'm not here. He said, oh, my dad's not here. He said, I'd like to talk to your dad if you can get a chance. How your dad give me a call? He said, okay. Hangs up the phone. I go, Jazz, you got him right where you want him, see? He's like, huh? I said, you got him right where you want him, dude. They want you bad. I said, so I'm not going to call him. I ain't going to call him. I'm going to call Johnny Jones. So I called Johnny Jones, got on the phone. I said, Johnny, what's up, man? And Johnny basically broke. He was probably the Coach Diaz of the group. The only dude that would, well, I ain't gonna say the only dude was challenging, but the dude that challenged the coach. And I say it in this way, where when Johnny got on the phone with me, he was like, hey man, he showed me what he was looking at. After looking at all the film, and I looked at your son, I looked at him and say, what do you need me for? I go, Johnny, I know that. And Johnny did this. I know you know that. So what he was letting me know at that point, I know you know what you're doing. And I appreciate you know what you're doing. So let me give you the skinny straight up. And basically he ended up telling me this, man, if dude go the other two ways, that ain't the way he wants to go. Your son has every quality and all the qualities that he needs. This is the kid he's looking for, okay? And to compound on top of that, Jazz ended up being more than what he was looking for. Because after 2 weeks of being in their presence and in their camp, he picks up the phone. Because me and him, we had our little back and forths, and I think at one point in time, he probably just thought I was this dad who was just 100% beside his son and thought his son could just do anything. But when he actually seen what Jazz was made of, what I give him the props for, and the reason why I made the decision, he picks up the phone. He calls me. He goes, hey, man, your son just ran a damn 5 so-and-so in 5:20 in the mile run, man. Man, you crazy, man. This kid, I said, he ain't gonna disappoint you. Before the month was out, he gave me 4 different calls. And before the month was out, he pulled Jazz in the office, was like, hey man, you better than what we thought you were.
The Sports Mastery Workbook was created for the student athlete and the parent to work through together. The Sports Mastery Workbook was created for the student athlete and the coach to work through together. It was created in a sense and in a way to bridge the gap in communication between these parties and build a successful relationship dynamic. To learn more, visit sportsmastery.com/workbook or check out the show notes page and click on the link. And now back to the show. I was going to say to bring this together. I know we were talking about your son being at University of Portland and deciding to transfer. He decided to transfer, and y'all decided to transfer for personal reasons. It wasn't academic. It wasn't disciplinary. And if you know anything about University of Portland, it being a private school, you have to have a certain GPA to get in there. And we're talking about a $200,000 education. And what it goes to show is if you decide to transfer from a school and you go back through the recruiting process, you have good grades, you're a pillar in the community, you're not going to have any problems finding another school. And sometimes kids, when they're transferring to another school or they decide to go through the recruiting process, whether it be the first time or the second time, what Leland is saying here is that you have to do your due diligence. You have to do extensive research. You can't be afraid to express yourself as far as the needs or the wants that you want from your student athlete or the needs that you're looking for as a student athlete. And, you got to be able to read people. Nonverbal, communication is everything.
And I can't leave this out because a huge key to my understanding college coaches was I was a high school coach. I became a high school coach and during Jazz's seventh grade year. Well, I helped out his seventh grade year, and I officially became a high school assistant varsity coach his eighth grade year. So that year, there was a player named Andrew Andrews who was heavily recruited, by in the Pac-12, and he went to the University of Washington and did real well at that school. Made a good name for himself. But in his process, while we were going through his recruiting process, I was the coach that controlled the workouts. And what I took the time to do was converse with each coach that came through and looked at Drew. And one of the coaches that came through was a coach at UOP, and his name was Eric Jackson. And he was an African-American coach, and we clicked, because I think him looking at my positioning and what I was doing with some of the kids, and what he kind of dug that. And at the same point, he was a black coach at a private school. And another thing that was going on at the school was they were going through some type of diversity thing where they wanted to start getting other types of students in their school to change the demographics. And so I kept talking to this guy, stayed in touch. That happened to be the school that offered Jazz at his sophomore year. And what I did as a parent is I didn't do what everybody else did. Lens, there's a Coach Doherty has a book called Lens, and he's a guy that got in touch with us through this podcast. And he has a cartoon caricature on his website where there's a bunch of cows, and when you look at the picture, some of the cows are going off of a cliff. Well, in the middle of the pile, there's one cow talking to the other cow, and he said, "Man, where are we going?" And the other cow says, "I don't know, bro, but obviously it's good. Everybody else is going." I liken that to your common parents' approach to their kids' athletic career. They tend to do what they see the masses do. I was different. I did my research, and I found out that out of all the kids in Oregon, I found out that 1.5% of those kids were the only kids to get a college scholarship, a 4-year scholarship. How I found this out was I listened to a conservative radio station, and on the conservative radio station, the ADs, the assistant directors, athletic directors of Oregon, high school athletic directors of Oregon, they did the research. And it was their way of getting the parents to say, "Hey, just come out here and just have fun with the sport, enjoy the sport. Don't make it a thing where you're looking for a college degree out of this, because these are your chances of getting a college degree." I didn't view it as, so I have slim to none chances. What I did is I said this: okay, what is the 1% doing then? What is the 0.5% doing? What are they doing to get seen?
Okay, Leland, what I want to do is bring this together, because I was listening to JB Brown in an interview, and because of this series is out, the series just came out about 3 to 4 weeks ago, right? And he said there's been over 400 to 500 kids contact him, to get to the school this year. So you were talking about what are the masses doing, so you could see he's getting a mass influx. He said he had to change his email address. Mm-hmm. So at some point you have to realize for certain athletes, there's going to be, what could we say, the law of diminishing returns, because you're trying to do what everybody else is doing. And are you trying to be an opportunist to get on TV, and you might not see what's really there, because even though they have unlimited recruiting, I know a junior college isn't giving out 85 to 100 scholarships. Mm-hmm. So then you have to look at the situation and look deeper into it. What's really going to be the best fit for you if you have everybody trying to go to that school? Now, it might not be the best fit, whether JB Brown is there or not, because when you look at the numbers.
And understand, we are talking about junior college football. So, I mean, these kids have already put themselves in a limited position anyway. So some of the recruiting tactics that we're talking about, these kids are far past that. You know what I'm saying? Because they've made mistakes, and basically the mistakes that they made, that walks in the door before they walk in the door. You know what I'm saying?
Leland, this is something that we really haven't talked about on the show, and that is strength training and being in the weight room. And, there was a scene in episode 5 where you see Malik Henry and his dad and their trainer, and him and the trainer and the dad is talking, and, the trainer asked Malik, how many racks do they have? Like squat racks and things like that. And Malik is like 6. And his dad is like, man, this isn't FSU. You can't expect it to be that. And my thing is, I have an etiquette when you're training with me. There's not going to be any parents on the floor. And when I looked at that scene, I thought it was fake. I thought it was bullshit. And I thought it was for show. Because when you look at Malik compared to a guy like a Jalen Hurts or a Tua Tagovailoa or even a Jake Fromm, them dudes is weight room beasts. Even when you looked at John Franklin, when he was on the first episode, he was fit. And why they showed that, I don't know, because I've been around athletes. I've been in the physical therapy clinic for over 9 years, and I can look at somebody's posture and tell if they're doing appropriate weightlifting. And when you look at him, you can tell he wasn't eating, and he definitely wasn't lifting. Now, my thing is, when you're a parent, you're on the floor doing a strength training workout, one, you're a distraction. And when I looked at what he was doing at his age, they were doing a trap bar deadlift, the TRX roll, suspension rolls, and single leg split squats. Now, I agree, there's a place for single leg split squats. There's a place for doing a trap bar deadlift. But when you looked at what he was doing at his age, and me from doing the research, and I'm not knocking the trap bar deadlift because I use it, and I do use the conjugate method as far as building strength. But when I looked at the weight that he was lifting, you could tell that it wasn't no serious weight, because I have girls deadlifting 225 pounds. And when you have to do the TRX rolls like he was doing, that tells me that you don't have enough strength to do pull-ups. So all I'm saying is, when you look at his development, the mental toughness wasn't installed to do strength training early on. And I'm talking about going back to like 8th and 9th grade. And you can see when you look at his physique, you could tell that was skipped over. When they show all the footage, they never show him lifting. They just show him doing a bunch of fucking quarterback drills and being at different camps. Now, and I'm saying this, I'll put myself out there. You can go to proforceathletics.com. That's my training website, and see some of the things we do. And if you look at the most recent video and you get to the end, you'll see that I have 2 8th grade and 9th grade kids. One, he cleans and jerks 225. And that's starting with those kids in the 7th grade, starting with their body weight and with the PVC pipe. And when I'm looking at Malik Henry, those elementary and fundamental lessons of strength training and developing the mindset to love the gym wasn't there. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were some problems with him in the weight room. And I will say, Leland, every now and then they'll show a Florida State clip, and it does look like he was in better shape from an upper body standpoint, mildly, when he was at Florida State. But I can guarantee that there were some, because a college strength and conditioning program is different. You know what I mean? Then if you're going from zero to straight into a program and you haven't been doing that and you're wondering, how is this important? What's your thoughts on, because I'm looking at him and then I'm looking at Jalen Hurts. And then I'm looking at my kids. You could talk about Mike Vick. We got a sophomore quarterback over Caleb Jordan, who's in the weight room, has been in the weight room since the 8th grade. And those are some of the things that, I thought that was for show in that scene, man. And it wasn't no serious lifting or no instruction, because when you come in and train with me, the parents, they sit in the lobby. You ain't going to have nothing to say. And that's one of the reasons why I prefer group training, because it cuts the bullshit out. And now I'm putting you in a position of competition, even just from a technical standpoint. Can you do it right? And can you execute proficiently? What was your thoughts on that scene, Leland, and your experience with strength training and athletes?
First of all, I do it like this. I don't bar parents out of workouts. It depends on the parent, okay? Because I kind of want them to see what the kid is going through.
Now, don't get me wrong. They're not going to be on the floor. I encourage parents, I want you to watch our workout. And I want you to see how I'm talking to your son or daughter, because you might not like my disciplinary and technical approach. So let me clear that up. You are 100% right.
Yeah. I don't blanket that, because I'll give you an example. Coach Muss came out here to Portland and he called me and he was like, "Hey, I'm in Portland. My son's playing an AU game." I was like, "Oh, real?" I said, "I'll come over and see you." He was like, "For real?" I said, "Yeah, man, I'm coming over, me and my wife." So we go over and see him, and we start talking, and we talking about who he's recruiting. He said, "I got this one kid. I can't say no names, but I got this one kid, man. He's cool, man. And his dad's just like you." And I looked at him, I said, "You sure?" "I don't know." He said, "Man, he's just like you. Just like you." Make a long story short, he's finding out his dad is not like me. He's really overbearing. He calls in, "Hey, why my son isn't doing this, and why isn't he doing that, and why are you guys not doing this? Why shouldn't he be doing this? He should be doing this." That only tells me that was a father who wasn't doing what he was supposed to do when his son was in high school. And that leads me to say this. There's a big story out right now, right? University of Maryland. And there's this kid who was on the team, and the trainers were working with him, and he falls out, collapses, and he dies. I'm not putting this on the parent or anything, but my approach, when I found out my kid or my kids, or when I find out what level my kids are going to, I listen to this saying, proper preparation prevents a piss poor performance. You have to properly prepare your kid on that next endeavor. You make your mistake when you don't sit him down and talk to him and say, "Look, this is a business venture you're going into." A lot of parents look at getting a scholarship as, "Oh, isn't it great? You have a scholarship. Wow." Why we as parents celebrate the fact that your kid is going to start all over at another level from the bottom, why we celebrated that in that vein always confuses me. It always confuses me. Why we don't sit our kids down and say, "Okay, you got a scholarship and that's good that you accomplished that. But do you know what you're moving into now? Do you know what kind of responsibilities you're going to have now?" I can guarantee you 90% of the parents who get recruited and probably have a semi-successful career haven't had those conversations with their kids. You have to have those kind of conversations with those kids, man. You have to get those kids prepared. You can't just throw him in someone else's hands and expect that they're going to take care of that child like he's your child. Now, those people had to learn the real hard way. And I'm not saying it's their fault. But what you do, with your natural human feeling, what you go, how could I have stopped this? What could I have done to kind of not let this happen? And the only thing I can say is, did you prepare your kid? And the reason, hey man, my son was prepared. You can check with Coach Revino at UOP, and he'll tell you, Jazz. Well, this is what I was told, that in the last 10 years when they had recruited a kid, they had never had a kid that came in as fit as Jazz at UOP. Okay, and they gave him an award for that. Okay, when he went to Nevada, it was all about preparation. It was all about having him prepared before he came in there. And when he came in there, he set records. I mean, even this year, he got the top time in the mile run. I think I told you it was a 5:10, 5:9, something like that in the mile run. He had a crate 5:15, something like that. It was a crazy, crazy time.
Right. Right. And I know he's strong too, because you showed me, a video clip of him deadlifting 473 pounds. Now, what's important about that is he plays basketball, and we know football is a contact sport. It's a sport that's based on strength, power, and explosion. So when I'm looking at this situation, you can see there was no fundamentals of powerlifting. There was no fundamentals of Olympic lifting. You can tell he wasn't doing, some explosive plyometrics. And you wonder why you come up short in certain situations, because when you get to a Division I college weight room, as your son is there, and we have Brian at the University of San Diego, Julius is at University of Oregon, we have Sam at Bucknell, and you have Coyote and Majid, two brothers at Boise State. You know that weight room is competitive. And I just seen something in that I wanted to discuss that I could see was off. You know what I mean? You could see the development wasn't there. And we both know, and I've listened to National Strength and Conditioning Association symposiums where I've heard PhDs ask other PhDs, well, when do you get into the psychological aspect of the game? And then I've heard another one say physical preparation, physical preparation, physical preparation. And basically what he's saying is that if you can get consistent with that, it's going to give you your confidence, because you're going to be bigger, faster, stronger, more agile, and more explosive. You just have to do the work. And if you don't take it serious when you're playing against guys at your level, oftentimes that's the deciding factor. And I never forgot that. And he said, physical preparation, physical preparation, physical preparation. And he was answering a guy's question about where does psychology play. So at a young level,
this is the funny part about that. If you use common sense, you don't need a clinical psychologist or a doctor to tell you that. That's just a natural human reaction. You see a kid or a male or anybody get stronger, what does it do? It bolsters their confidence. I'm stronger than you. They want to exhibit that strength. Okay, so I mean, it don't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. You get stronger, you get more confident. You get stronger, you find out you can do things you couldn't do before. You know what I'm saying? And all you got to do is, that's what kills me, because I think at times people feel like you got to, go talk to this dude that had 5 or 6 degrees to figure this out. I never talked to any of those guys. I never went and read any book on psychological preparation. I didn't do none of that. I use common sense. I use my experience in the sport. And my experience in the sport told me all these things. And it was just interesting that, after I come out of the, I got my head down and I'm on the grind, I raised my head up to see what's going on. I see all these dudes who wrote these books on psychological training, and I'm like, shit, that's the way, there's no other way to do it. In my mind, I'm like, what other way are you going to get it accomplished if you don't approach it this way? And that's why Jazz found himself in the positions that he found himself in. One thing I didn't do in his process is, you don't point the finger in other places. because there's always something that you can improve. There's always something that you can get better at. You know what I'm saying? I don't get my athletes. And when Coyote called me one day and he was like, yeah, man, I was in a workout. Yeah, man. And the coach was telling me that he wanted me to do the workout like this. And first, let me explain to you what the workout was. So what was the workout? He said he wanted us to get to from point A to point B in 8 seconds. I said, really? He said, yeah. So I made every rep in 8 seconds. And the first question I asked was, what was everybody else doing? Well, let me explain to you, man. Well, see, this is what happened. I was getting 8 seconds just because the rookies, they was doing it in the 7 and they was doing it in the 6. And immediately I cut him off and I said, so you was being a jackass. And he got quiet. I said, yeah, you was being a jackass. I said, because what jackass is going to let freshmen come in and outwork them? He got real quiet. I said, don't ever call me with this bullshit, man. You know better than this, don't you? He thought for a minute. He said, yeah. I said, you know you're being a jackass. I said, now what you're going to have to do, I said, because you know what you did last year to yourself. Yeah, I said, now you're showing overconfidence. You need to humble your goddamn self, get back into the workouts, and you need to go to the coach and apologize. Hey, coach, I apologize for coming off a little brash. I'm going to pick this shit up. And that's exactly what he did. And I ended up talking to the coach like maybe a half month later. And it was a trip because his dumb ass thought actually he was the one to just ship him into shape. Because when I gave him a call, I said, yeah, man, I'm just giving you a call, try to check up on Yodi. And he told me about the situation. He was like, yeah, man, he was, kind of dogging it. And, I had to get into him and let him know that, hey, man, it's not going to be that way. And I let him think that. That's cool. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's not good to do battle over trivial shit. So you're like, okay, cool. Because as long as we getting what we got to get, that's my main objective. And the kid knows. The kid knows. He knows I'm not gonna just jump on your side for any situation that pops off. I'm gonna analyze the situation, and if I find you in the wrong, then we gonna fix it. But what a lot of people don't understand is when you become that person, and I think you can attest to this, Coach Reveno, I think, had extreme respect for me. And I had extreme respect for him because I never pointed the finger at him. Even though I thought he was doing my son wrong at times, I felt like that energy could be spent on things that we could control. And I ended up controlling the situation anyway.
Yeah, I like how y'all maintained a good rapport, and I mean, I forget which episode, but you even connected me with Coach Rev, and he's been on the show. And there was another assistant over there. I think what is his name?
Kramer Knutson.
Yeah, he was on the show too. So I mean, I really appreciate you maintaining a good rapport and those guys coming on the show and adding value to it. Leland, as we get into the fourth quarter of this episode, was there any more poignant points in episode 5 of season 3 of Last Chance U that really stuck out to you that you would like to discuss that our audience can benefit from?
Not really. I think we touched on a lot of the stuff that I wanted to get out and talk about. I think after listening to a couple of more interviews, I listened to an interview on 95.7 and another interview with Michael Rappaport. I've grown to respect JB a little bit more, and I respect a little bit more of the method to his madness. I like to say to some of the people out there who disagree with his methods, you have to understand what he's dealing with. You have to understand the type of kid he's dealing with. The type of kid he's dealing with is looking to take advantage of you at every drop of the hat. He's looking to try to make you look stupid at every drop of the hat. Try to take advantage of you in this relationship, and he'll push you as far as you let him push you. So you have to be the type of individual that Coach Brown is to get done what he needs to get done. Now, you're not going to agree with everything he does. You're not going to agree with the fact that he recruits 8 or 9 running backs or 5 or 6 quarterbacks and brings them into the school at the same time. You're not going to agree with that. But check this out. If to avoid that whole situation and to avoid the situation that he's in, then guess what? Do your job right. Do everything that you're supposed to be doing in high school, and don't end up in that situation, and you don't have to worry about it. Because the situation he's in, it's a different beast. It's not like Division I football. It's not like Division II sports. It's a different beast. And it gets, believe it or not, that junior college situation gets worse when you take that over to California. Because you go over to California.
Because they don't give scholarships.
They don't give scholarships. You know what I'm saying? It's they really have kids in there that are in the poorhouse. And I if anything, I want to kind of expose. I want to expose that situation in California. I want to be the first to say somebody has to change what's going on in junior college sports in California. Somebody has to change that, because kids are going to continuously get taken advantage of and get treated like meat on the daily, especially in that situation. At least in Coach Brown's situation, they can care about you a little bit. You know what I'm saying? A little.
Yeah, and it goes a long way, and you could show, you could see that it's showing in his work, not only in the show, but the things that he done that's been documented before he even had the show. I think what would be compelling, man, if Netflix figured out a way, to have them play each other, East Mississippi and ICC, in the regular season, having a regular season game, man. I think that would be interesting, because I like JB Brown. He fired some big ass shots at Buddy Stevens, and I think that would make for a heated rivalry right there. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I love JB, because JB is a lot like myself. He's a lot like Coach Eric Musselman. Like Jazz say, we petty. You know what I'm saying? At times, man, I can get petty. You know what I'm saying? But I think I use that when it's needed. You know what I'm saying? I think Coach Brown uses it when it's needed. You know what I'm saying? Coach Muss, he uses it when it's needed. You know what I'm saying? I want to thank Rain for supplying us with the links to go more in depth in who Coach Brown is as a person and who he is as a coach, because those interviews really, even though I had my own analysis of who he was and what type of coach he was, it deepened that. It deepened that even more so, because he even got challenged in one of the interviews where one of the guys was like, "Well, you're not their parent, so why are you talking to them like that?" And he goes, "Well, some of those dudes, those single parent moms, they talk to them worse than I do." And he's like, "Well, you're not the parent." And then he shoots back at him. So, well, what is my role then? if I can't do that, what is my role then? What's my role? And the guy, of course, just like anybody, who wants to badger and ask questions but don't want a real answer, he didn't try to find a real answer. He didn't try to go in depth and say, well, yeah, let's discuss what your role is, because that would be too difficult for him, because, that particular interviewer earlier on had brushed it up. My brother works with inner city kids, and, he does the thing, and I get that. Well, you don't get it. Just by making that comment shows that you don't get it, because it's not just that easy. You just can't come from out of suburbia, go work with a bunch of inner city kids and say, well, at least I came out of suburbia and worked with those inner city kids. That ain't doing no good, because if you're not willing to get down on their level, get your knees dirty, get your hands dirty, and get a little mud on your face, then you're not going to help that kid. And guys like that, that's what they do. They don't come and get mud on their face. They just come and make an appearance and think that's going to help those kids. Well, Coach Brown is getting mud on his face.
Right. It's been proven, because I know he coached in California at the high school level for 13 years without being paid, and eventually broke into the junior college ranks. I think the important thing here is that he has the patience to deal with the inner city athlete. He has the patience to deal with the troubled athlete. He has the patience to deal with kids that come from a background where both parents aren't there, people have gone to jail, there's some type of socio-economic devastation or some type of socio-economic circumstance that's going on that he welcomes. And and what I can appreciate about his mentor, Coach Ward, he said, we want them kids. You know what I mean? We want kids like that. Those are the kids that need help the most. And I think that was an incredible statement that he made, man. And I think if some people in certain places took the patience, to understand what they're getting and just not and looking past like the athlete, the football player, the basketball player, the track and field athlete, if they took the patience to understand a child's dynamic, they could go further and they can get more out of that athlete rather than, sweeping a situation up under the rug as soon as it goes bad or say, look, I gave him a chance. He blew a scholarship. Well, it's deeper than that. You know what I mean? We have to have some patience in these circumstances. And we as coaches, collectively, we have to be able to do the work and help a kid work through their obstacles, help them get out of their own way. And JB has expressed that on more than one occasion. This kid is in his own way.
Okay, and since you saying that, let's put it out there. If by any chance, you guys can hear this, you are your dad. Man, give me and Deshaun a call. I was thinking about this. I think I could help him, man. I think I could help him and his dad if they were willing participants. I think we could help them if they were.
I agree 100%.
I think we could help them, and I'm just putting it out there in the airways. If you guys get a chance to hear this, hey man, don't hesitate. Even if you feel like we've criticized or we said something about you or to you that pissed you off, if that could initiate some contact between yourselves and me and Deshaun, I really feel like if that ever happened, we could help. We could help. You know what I'm saying? I kind of wish, because I hate seeing, at one point you go, that's what his ass get, right? But now I'm sitting back going, damn, am I wrong for not feeling bad that he's in this situation? And now I'm in a place where I wish I could help him. I kind of feel bad for him. I wish I could hug him. I wish I'd just give him a real big hug and go, let me talk to you, bro. Let's sit down and talk. Because now I see that he's desperate and he actually wants that opportunity. And he has to be desperate because he's gone back to Coach Brown to ask for another opportunity. And he's actually graduated. He's actually, can move on from that school and go on to a Division II or Division I. But he wants to come back to that situation. And Coach Brown, if you hear this, don't drop the ball on him. I think you should let him come back in and let him prove some things to you.
Well, I think it's kind of tough, Leland, and I say that because I bet you there's some things that we don't know that's going on with the higher ups. And when I did the research, he has 5 quarterbacks on the team right now. So maybe it could have been different if he probably would have stayed in Kansas, but maybe he went home to California and took some classes. And the last I heard, he was calling right before training camp started. And JB was like, I could bring him back, but I think he said it wouldn't be a good idea, or I just can't do it. One thing we do know is that Lane Kiffin at FAU was interested, and the head coach at Hawaii was interested. But as of this date, he has not been signed. The beautiful thing about his situation is that he redshirted when he was at Florida State, played 1 year at Independence Community College. So he still has 3 seasons to play. But as we know, that Division I clock is ticking.
And not only that, if you listen to the second Rappaport interview, he Coach Brown, he doesn't dare the situation of him coming back to the school. It sounds like he's kind of opening up to it, because he made the statement that he said, if we brought Malik back to school, that would probably be the highest rated series amongst these series to date. So he's kind of cognizant of Malik's effect, the effect he would have if he brought him back. And I mean, it was a positive. He was like, man, do you know that if we brought him back, man, that would probably be one of the biggest documentaries to date at this point of all of this series. This will blow it out. And it was particularly about his appearance and him being able to be on the show. So, I mean, he looked at it from different aspects also.
Yes, but then you also have to remember he did make the statement, if he's going to go to FAU or Hawaii and they haven't signed him, they're looking at the risk versus the reward. You know what I mean? So it's a balance.
I think he understood in the Rappaport interview. I think that was all taken into that he thought about all that. But I think what he's starting to do now, he's starting to look at, okay, if I brought him in, what would it be like? Where in the first video, or the first interview, he was like, nope, it ain't gonna happen. I can't do it. Well, in the Rappaport video, he didn't feel that way. So.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank y'all for joining us on the show. If you have questions, comments, statements, concerns, this is an open dialogue. You know, we look forward to input and feedback. That means criticism. We're looking for ways to get the show better. If you feel that there's things that we're missing, things that we can touch on, don't hesitate to hit me up through the website at sportsmastery.com. You can address Leland and myself, or you can send me a direct message to Deshaun at sportsmastery.com and address Leland and myself. So we're going to sign off right here. Peace and blessings.